Spoilers for some games! There'll be time to click away before each segment. You know what's great? Games that are horror games. I do not like games that aren't horror games. You think that I'd just play a game without the chance of some sort of animatronic jumping directly into my face like seriously that's insane precision? Bro, that's just not cool. You know what else sucks? Horror games! You think that I'd play a game that actively tries to make me feel arguably the worst emotion? Bro, get out of town. I find that I don't play a lot of horror games. They just don't scare me and oh my god! However, I do find myself inadvertently playing a lot of games that sort of aren't but really are with a pinch of horror. You know? Now of course, in a list like this, there may be some games which you'll think, what? They're not scary, why'd you add that to the list? And to that I say, yeah. There are some games here which aren't explicitly horror games, but do have a lot of things that I find scary. So if you think there are games that are scarier that I forgot to put on this list, it's probably because I didn't play them. Now, on the last list, I had a whole rating system and an average to rank games, so I decided to make it more complex. No, I'm just going off preferences. If you disagree with me, that's all good. However, you are objectively wrong. I do apologize. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into ranking them.
Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot.
What the actual heck was the ending? Yeah, sure, there's a bunch of spooky surveillance, there's this weird pig at one point, a bunch of mind control guys, but whatever. If you don't look into it, you don't really know about it. It's somewhat fine. This is just a giant big sphere of pure wrongness. Just to make the few people who are unfazed crack and to make everyone else start to question the sanity of playdead games. With this, it's just like, hey, you know how you had to decipher everything? Here's a big lore dump. Great, in what form? Potato! What? Potato! Like, not only is it gross as hell, but it also adds to the list of games I've made an analysis video on where one of the villains is a giant amalgamation of probably previously dead people. Wow, great job, me. 2 for 2. And its movements are so weird, and it rolls around, and oh my gosh, it extends. Why must you extend? Okay, there's other parts of this game. What else have we got? So, this entire game involves you sneaking around a dystopian future where everyone is mind-controlled. These scientists seem to be doing these strange experiments on everyone, with these weird pigs, underwater experiments, and everyone is mind-controlled with these guys in a giant mind-controlling devices. Whenever they aren't being mind-controlled, they just kind of stand there, not doing anything, and it's a little disturbing. The ending involves you going into this giant meatball of terror and escaping the facility. There's actually a different secret ending where you can enter this secret basement, turn off the electrical outlet, and then you just stand there like everyone else does when they're not being mind-controlled. So yeah, what the actual heck? Everyone seems to have a theory on the ending of this game, or the secret ending, but no one seems to have a theory on why the scientists are doing what they did. Was the hell potato supposed to help the world? Are the scientists in a closed facility testing things? Were they just curious? It's interesting to speculate about and see what people can come up with, because I don't think there's one straight answer. But all in all, it has a lot of creepy elements, and I think it's definitely deserving of a spot on this list. I'm never eating mashed potato again. Limbo is an incredibly beautiful game. I love the art style, and the black and white scenery is not only extremely pretty, but also adds a lot to the horror aspects of the game. This game has a lot of horror elements which you'd find in standard horror games, but it also adds a lot of classic puzzle solving, which I love. Anyway, what about the scaries? There are a considerable amount of them here, namely spiders! Now, in Australia, this is just kind of a regular Tuesday. However, I could see why this thing could be freaking terrifying. It's just so large, and the way they animate the limbs stabbing you in the back is just, it's so good, but also, Of course, there's the moment where you rip off the final limb of the spider and use that to push it into a pit so you can walk across it. I'm gonna throw up real quick. There are also the mind control parasites, which are similar to those in Inside, but instead of scientist-operated machinery, it's worms, which is far better or far worse depending on how you look at it. They just climb into you and you can't move, and saying it aloud makes me feel it inside me. Am I going to die? Is this how I die? Of course, one of the most interesting parts of this game is the story. There's no completely solid idea, but the most popular theory is that you, the player, are dead. The reason the game is called Limbo is that you're in limbo, paying some loose end before you can be set to rest. The things you come across are either stages of life, like dealing with bullies, getting a job, or they're the fears the player has to come to terms with. This is the spiders, the worms, and everything else that makes people realize they shouldn't have bought this for their kids. At the end, you see that a girl is burying you, which could be signifying that she's letting you rest. As in some old tales, burying someone is your way of finally giving them peace. Some theories suggest that the girl is also dead, but hasn't started her journey through Limbo yet. and others say that to get to Limbo, the player must have committed a sin, and there is some controversy about what it could be. Whatever it is, the game has a really interesting way of presenting its story, whatever it is. Also, horror elements aside, it's just a great game. I love the art style, and the puzzles were actually pretty challenging. I needed assistance multiple times, in a good way. I definitely recommend it, as long as you're not afraid of spiders.
You can't spend your day in a broom closet.
It's no longer a broom closet. It's now a citadel of higher learning.
I really love the Stanley Parable. It's definitely going to appear more on this channel. If you haven't played the Stanley Parable, play it. And if you have, then you might be wondering how this beat Limbo and Inside. Well, Limbo and Inside definitely lean more into its horror elements, while the Stanley Parable catches you off guard with some of the scary things. Many endings are hilarious, including the game's ending with and without the bucket, the confusion ending, and of course, the broom closet ending. However, there are definitely some sad/existentially dreadful endings, including probably the most well-known of these, the coveted Not Stanley ending. The one where at the end the player is suspended above Stanley's body, unable to control him, and the narrator gets gradually more panicked as Stanley continues to not respond, before worriedly letting Stanley decide when to move, which could presumably never happen. Also, credits play over it, signifying that this is the end. What the heck? I don't really know what this ending means, but I'm sure it doesn't mean anything good for my sleep schedule. This game really shows its themes in interesting and easy to understand ways, and each ending tells something different, which is one of the main reasons I love this game so much. The endings are all very interesting to figure out, and they always have a great payoff. But of course, that's not all the existential dread. Oh no. We also can't forget the Zending. In this next terrifying and depressing episode, you have to try and kill yourself over and over again because that's the only way the game allows you to progress. Not to mention the narrator begging you not to because this is the only situation where he can ever feel happy, and his defeat when he realizes he's going back. Jesus. Okay, what else have we got? An ending where you get sick in a car park and lose your sanity, one where you realize your life is fiction and are told by your job to die, and one where you ruin a story and are literally nuked. What the heck is this game? Now all those endings are great and all, but have you ever tried the skip button ending? Unironically, one of the most terrifying moments I've played in any video game. I know that's not saying much. I mean, seriously, this is spine-chilling. The idea that you can spend a near infinite amount of time just living without anything but your thoughts to distract you. The idea that your only person that can help you from this hell keeps leaving you for an indeterminate amount of time because they have nothing else to do. The idea that you can go insane with no one to help you for the better part of your existence. The more I think about this ending, the better it gets, and the more interesting it becomes. I genuinely can't get enough of this game, which is why I'm saving it for a future video. I promise. On we go!
Hello, how are you? I am under the water. Please help me.
Okay, I really should have listened to the people that said this was a horror game. It should also be known that I've not got any phobias, but if I had to choose two, guess which ones I'd choose? It was B! Thalassophobia, fear of the deep ocean, and megalophobia, fear of large things. And also guess what two things feature prominently in this game? This game is about you learning to survive on an alien planet until you can create a rocket and get out of there, something you'll want to do every time you meet a new creature. The game has a great feel to it all, and it's really beautiful whenever you're within a 120-meter radius of your home base. Of course, there are many biomes and creatures to talk about with this, but we're going to focus on the life class form that everyone knows and loves. Leviathans! Woo! So, what better place to start than the iconic Reaper Leviathan? Most commonly found near the wreckage of the Aurora, which is one of the most important parts of the game because of course it is. There are many other places that can be found, like the safe shallows if you're unlucky enough.
Hey! Stay away, he's coming right for us!
After these godforsaken abominations see you, they scream and race towards you. If you're in a submarine, then you get to stare into its mouth and its very many teeth, as it grabs your vehicle and slowly depletes its safeness. Or, of course, if you're not in a submarine, you get the... Yeah, there's a reason they're as feared as they are. We also have the Sea Dragon Leviathan, found at the bottom of volcanic chasms. The one you can find are the second largest entities in the game, where they shoot fire at you and your submarine, 1,000 meters below the surface of the water. Just have to be a fast swimmer, I guess. There are many other creatures in this game too, like the Warpers, which make sounds that I can only describe as mechanical things, as they randomly teleport you. Or these. These stupid things! If you haven't played the game, you might think, oh, what a little guy, what a little fella. No! These things randomly pop up out of nowhere, give a countdown until they explode right in your face, and deplete your health so quickly. They literally only exist to make you want to throw your computer/console out the window. Start a change.org petition to make these goddamn little dust-eating red-old idiot sandwich gremlins gone! Okay, too far. Sorry, you little dumb faces. Now, I haven't played Subnautica Below Zero, though it looks really good. I'll have to get onto it as well, because these things look terrifying. But I really only put Subnautica on the list for one reason, and that reason is this.
Warning, entering ecological dead zone. Adding report to databank.
The ecological dead zone is the most fun I've ever had being terrified. This area perfectly encapsulates why the ocean is the most terrifying thing on Earth. And here's why. Now, if Subnautica was an average other game, then it would make a random wolf show up or something when it doesn't want you leaving the map. But because it's a Chad Subnautica game, it uses this! In the best way to get someone to leave an area, Subnautica has this happen. On the edge of the map, the floor completely drops. There is no ground to be found, and you're not going to get enough time to check if that's true. Suddenly, the water goes from some sort of serene or yellowish blue to a completely generic and blank blue. It's unnerving. It puts you on edge, helped in no small part by the radio saying you've entered the ecological dead zone. You're probably a bit confused, but nonetheless curious about what's waiting for you here. So you might go out a bit further or look around, and you hear this. This is the Ghost Leviathan, the most terrifying thing. There it is. Found it. So it rams its enormous head into your ship and you immediately want to leave. Easy enough, but actually no, you can't, because as soon as you looked around, you lost where back was. As far as you know, going back might be going further into the dead zone. The waters are so strangely murky, meaning no land can be found as soon as you enter it. So you just have to hope that you're not going to die and it's just so good! It's really not enough to watch videos, it is so different actually being there yourself. This is Trapped. This is hopelessness, and this is fear. So, on to number 1, right? Well, yes, but actually no, because we have some honorable mentions. Yep, Undertale can be pretty scary. With the True Lab and its horror aspects, Omega Flowey and his design, and all of the pretty dark interactions with characters like Sans and Nazgul, it's definitely got some pretty scary parts. However, I don't think it cut for the list since it definitely doesn't focus on these parts, focusing more on the humor. And I've already said enough about Undertale to the point I don't want to hear Megalovania for the next 2 months. While Minecraft does have some creatures that could be considered pretty scary, like Endermen and Ghasts, I think the nature and graphics it has doesn't support that all too well. That's not to say there can't be some heart-stopping moments. I doubt anyone who's played more than 5 minutes of Minecraft can say a creeper hasn't made their life flash before their eyes, but I definitely wouldn't say that it qualifies for this list. UCN is okay. I think that because you get jump scared so often, very little of them actually end up being effective. It's not a bad game, in fact it's extremely fun and an interesting FNAF detour, but there are definitely better games to get a good scare. Now Security Breach seems like it'd be a great option. It's an open world game, it has a lot of jump scares, there are actually a lot of pretty spooky designs and the jump scares work pretty well. However, I didn't think it qualifies for this list because this game is not good. Alrighty, on to number 1. But what could be scarier than a game based in the ocean where giant creatures hunt you down? Well, what about a game based in the ocean with one giant creature hunting you down? Stay with me. I present to you... Einlung is the scariest game I've ever played, and probably the scariest game you'll play. This is because other horror games will usually focus on jump scares, gore, or some sort of creature. These can definitely scare people, but usually wears off after you start to think about it, or right after something happens. You might be thinking, hey, doesn't Subnautica use jump scares? And doesn't Einlung also use some jump scares and a creature? And you'd be right, but they use one extra element. There's one thing that really makes people scared. You can say I'm afraid of spiders, or I'm afraid of heights, or I'm afraid of those little juice cups because they always spray juice at me, which is not a fear I have, I'm just clearing this up. But all these fears that control us have one thing in common. The unknown. Spiders are scary because we never see faces or poison like they carry with them. It's unknown. We're afraid of heights because we don't know how it's going to feel when we're falling or when we hit the ground. We're afraid of those little juice cups, but not me, because we don't know when, if, and how they'll spray juice at you. When other games always use the same monster, always the same lead up to the jump scares, always the same gory situations, they lose how alien, how unknown it feels when you reach those points. The Dead Zone was so unimaginably scary because you don't know what's waiting there, how to get out, why it's here, where you are at all. A jump scare with no build-up, like a sudden Reaper or a sudden giant human blob, can be scary because you didn't expect them and they affect everything around them. And Iron Lung knows this and completely understands it. And, of course, there is nothing more unknown, more sudden, than the ocean. It lives right alongside us. We use it, we see it, haha, get it, see it, all the time, but since it covers 70% of our planet, so much of it is unknown. And in as alien living conditions as those, the creatures there are going to be completely alien. To name all the possible evolutionary advantages a predatory creature could contain down there would have to be near impossible, which makes it even more effective. So, enough rambling about what scares us. Let's get into the legendary Iron Lung. The whole idea of Iron Lung is that you are a convict who is in a time where humanity has made homes in space. Then suddenly, all habitable planets and stars disappear, meaning anyone on Earth during that event probably isn't doing too well. They'll have to walk it off. Everyone on the ships are trying to find some kind of land to settle in, and have sent you to a test moon with an ocean made completely of blood where you navigate and take pictures down there while piloting a rickety old half-dead submarine nicknamed the Iron Lung. Okay. Anyways, you go into the water to check out this planet, but because of how deep they need you to go, they bolt up the windows. So your only way of seeing the outside world is through this pretty poor camera that's installed into the sub. It's grainy and is black and white, but you can discern things from it. So as you go on, you have to get specific coordinates on a map. There's no real order in what way to go, but it's pretty easy to tell where to go. So as you go along, taking pictures, looking at some... What's that? Never mind. It's all extremely mysterious, and though you can't see anything, the sound effects and slight camera vibrations completely make you feel like you're moving. The atmosphere is impeccable, and it keeps you on edge throughout the entire game. There isn't one moment where I'm not expecting there to be some sort of error, creature, or something else. Anyway, you have a radar on your ship that tells you there's something nearby, which you'll have to pay extremely close attention to because if you hit just one wall, you immediately explode. That's probably the biggest jump scare in the game. But anyway, you go on, getting images, learning more about the types of things that are on this planet until you get to an extremely tight section. You have to be totally exact to go through and get the picture. As you go through, the sub starts to rattle and shake as though from a sort of immense heat. As you finally get to where you need to take a picture, you press the button, and this strange thing shows up. It's a sort of burst of bright light, but it doesn't act like a burst. It's always there no matter how many times you take the picture. It's strange. But you have one more to get to, so you find your way back through the narrow strip you went through before, onto your way to get out of this place, when suddenly, something comes up. Ha! You thought I was going to tell you what happens, didn't you? Well, no, either search it up yourself or just get the game. It's only $6 and 5 times better than most of the $60 games out there. Even if you already spoiled what happens, get it anyway because I knew it was coming and I had to sit back for a couple seconds in terror. Anyways, there you have it. My top 10 scariest horror games from a guy who has not played horror games. Pretty much all these games are great even if you look past the horror aspects, other than Iron Lung, but that's because the horror in that one is the sole focus. I'd recommend all of them, though I'd probably recommend the Stanley Parable the most because of its fantastic humour alongside the pretty sad/spoopy elements. Unless you're a horror enthusiast, in which case, Iron Lung. Thank you for watching, cue the outro music.